Hi, everybody. Good morning. It's not morning anymore. Good afternoon here on the East Coast. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Our topic today, right now, is crossing the line when feelings shift. So we have a lovely panel of readers here. I will let them introduce themselves when they go to read. And we are going to start with Anna Graham. If everyone else could please turn off their video and audio, we'll give Anna the floor.
Thank you, Sandy. Yes, I am Anna Graham, and I am reading today from my second release, which is Coda. Move the hand out of the way there. Coda is basically about two women who see each other again after 30 years after being apart. Parker has always, not always, but harbored feelings for Hannah, and Hannah knew it, but obviously nothing ever happened. We meet up with them at a college reunion. And Hannah has not seen Parker in over 30 years. So when she first sees her, she has that, what I call the zap moment, where she realizes she's attracted to her. And when she finally figures out who Parker is, things become a little complicated. So this is the scene that I am reading today. Who is that? The question sounded sultrier than Hannah expected. Good thing it was in her head. Stephanie stood in the middle of the room giving a poignant, heartfelt speech about family, sisterhood, and lifelong friends. But none of it registered in Hannah's brain, nor did Keith's words about support and teamwork as Hannah ogled a tall, androgynous woman 5 feet away, standing next to Morgan. The woman was stoic, her attention on Stephanie, and Hannah allowed herself a moment to gaze unobstructed. She followed the line of fitted red chino pants that highlighted sinewy muscle. The dress shirt showed a little hint of collarbone thanks to the open flap style at the neck. The black fitted vest should have disappeared on the black shirt, but the flowery gold designs drew the eye's attention, yet not too much to make its wearer stand out. The woman clasped her hands in front of her, and Hannah noticed a tattoo spiraling up her right arm. She couldn't make out the details, but there were music bars and notes. She tilted her head to follow it, but the sleeve blocked any further exploration. Suddenly, the woman fidgeted and shook out her shoulders. Her eyes darted around the room and landed on Hannah. Her lips thinned. Could she feel Hannah's gaze? She's gorgeous, Hannah whispered. What was that? Emily asked. Hannah totally forgot Emily was right next to her. She shook her head and said, Nothing. I was just making an observation. A very sexy observation. Thankfully, Emily shrugged and turned her attention back to Keith. Hannah sighed in relief. She wasn't necessarily hiding her bisexuality, but it was still fairly new. So new that not a lot of people knew about it except for Morgan and Stephanie. And that was all who needed to know while she navigated this newest development so late in her life. To say it was unexpected was the understatement of the century. She and Mike had been separated for about 4 months when she'd met a wonderful woman. Hannah thought her response was the typical new friendship feeling combined with not having to answer to someone who controlled every aspect of her life. Soon, though, she'd realized she wanted more than friendship. Nothing had come of it, but it unsettled Hannah enough she confided in Stephanie and was grateful to have her friend to be so supportive. I'm glad you told me, she'd said. I know you don't think you'll ever act on any feelings, but don't be surprised if a woman comes along to spark enough interest to try it out. She'd rolled her eyes at the statement. It wasn't like Hannah was trying out a new bike. She was attracted to women, and that would require time to get used to. Seeing this woman now, Hannah had to wonder if she hadn't given Stephanie enough credit with her initial assessment. The entire room broke out into applause. The speeches were over. Keith and Stephanie thanked everyone for coming and veered off in opposite directions. Hannah moved in the direction of tall, dark, and sexy, but was stopped by a light hand on her wrist. Don't run off just yet, Emily said. We haven't seen each other in years. Let's catch up. Hannah nearly groaned in frustration. She didn't know how long this woman was going to be next to her daughter, the perfect in, and Emily was blocking her from that attempt. How about we meet up for coffee tomorrow? Just the two of us. Then we don't have to shout or be interrupted. That's a wonderful idea. Usual spot? Usual spot. Emily squealed and gave Hannah a quick hug before running off to other former classmates and sorority sisters. Hannah turned and took a deep breath. She smoothed her dress pants and shook out her hair, and then she walked across the band room to finally meet the mystery woman. As soon as Hannah arrived, she wrapped her arm around Morgan's shoulders. Hey, sweetheart. Sorry about earlier. This one, she pointed to Stephanie, needed a little extra encouragement. It's okay, Morgan replied. How many of my friends gushed over how you've grown and gotten so pretty? She moved to pinch Morgan's cheeks, but was quickly swatted away. Only one, and she didn't pinch my cheeks. Keith came over and said hello, but I think he was more interested in talking to Parker than me. Parker? Hannah asked. She looked at the tall woman who smiled shyly and extended her hand. Recognition clicked hard in Hannah's brain, and her hand paused halfway. Parker? As in, Hannah didn't know how to finish that sentence. Her mystery woman was Parker Thompson. She had to be. Hannah didn't know any other Parker from her past, which made this meeting, well, the best way to describe it was complicated. She composed her features, completed the handshake, and took in the changes, convincing herself it was normal to ogle someone in that capacity. The face was leaner, hair exponentially shorter, and she was tall. Had Parker always been that tall? When she looked up and saw Parker's eyes, Hannah's heart stopped. She knew those eyes, deep, brown, and full of hope. Hannah used to know what that hope was for. Now, she didn't have a clue. Good to see you again, Hannah. You look well. Thanks. Parker squinted at her. Her focus felt intense and caused Hannah's skin to tingle. Her breathing shallowed. She wished the floor would open up and let her drop to the center of the earth. Will you excuse me for a minute? Hannah didn't wait for a reply and rushed to the bar in the far corner and ordered a glass of white wine. She gulped the liquid courage greedily and finished half by the time Stephanie appeared at her side. Did you know she'd be here? Stephanie winced and nodded. I actually invited her. Are you upset? Not in the least, Hannah lied. She polished off the wine and slammed the glass down, ordered another, then turned and watched Parker. A quick buzz was taking effect, and Hannah's breathing slowed enough she didn't feel in danger of hyperventilating. She grabbed the first glass and sipped it this time as she went over the last few minutes in her mind. Parker Thompson was here after all this time. All Hannah remembered of her was an 18-year-old kid who followed her around like a puppy dog. She took in Parker's current appearance again. She wasn't a kid anymore, if the heat simmering low in Hannah's core was any indication. I should have warned you, Stephanie said. Hannah scoffed and turned back to the bar. Yeah, a heads up would have been nice. I'm sorry. Honestly, I wasn't sure you'd recognize her. Hannah took a deep breath and set down the empty glass. I'll admit, I didn't recognize her at first, but as soon as Morgan said her name, she needed to get her emotions under control. It was bad enough Morgan seemed to really like Parker. Hannah didn't have to add on unexpected attraction if she was going to survive the week. Because if Parker was attending the cocktail party, she definitely would be at the other alumni events.
Awesome. Love it. I love those moments when you see someone after you haven't seen them for so long and they're totally different. And you're like, what?
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Aurora Rey. Hi, Aurora. Go ahead
Hi,
and
Sandy.
introduce yourself.
Hey everyone, I am Aurora Ray. I write contemporary, mostly sapphic romance, occasional queer romances with some trans main characters, but sapphic romance is my bread and butter, usually of the foodie, nerdy, and or DIY variety. What I'm going to be reading from today is It Happened One Semester, which is a nerdy flavored one. It's actually set in academia, which is where I have spent my professional career. The story features Hudson, who is a new professor at Coteau College, and Callie, who is an administrator. She's an advising dean who doesn't come from the faculty, who secretly manages a satirical faculty social media account. Hudson and Callie meet at a Pride event in the summer and have a one-night stand, and Hudson kind of figures she'll never see Callie again until she shows up for new faculty orientation in August. Last on the agenda before lunch was a joint presentation from the registrar and the dean of advising. Hudson wouldn't be assigned advisees in her first year, but it paid to know the systems and structures. She'd have to submit grades, obviously, but she learned students brought their questions to the faculty they felt safe with, regardless of who had the official advisor title. Much like her relationship with Betty, the department admin, it paid to have an in with the people in control of college administrivia. Hudson sat a little straighter, prepared to pay extra attention and earn a few brownie points. But when the folks in charge of the session strolled in, it was all she could do not to fall out of her chair. Registrar Sasha Crane was the woman who'd caught Hudson staring across the dance floor and whispered it to her friend. And the Callie she'd hooked up with and fantasized about ever since was none other than Callie Shaw, Koto College's Dean of Advising. Even as echoes of "it couldn't possibly" flitted through her mind, the blare of "but of course it was" screeched to the forefront. Because Raghill was a small town, and Koto was undoubtedly its largest employer, and because that's what she deserved for thinking she could have an anonymous hookup and leave it at that. To make matters worse, Callie was even more gorgeous than Hudson remembered. No rainbow dress this time, but the black and white stripe echoed the style. And while the cut was less revealing, the overall look, professional without being severe, proved even more appealing. It took conscious effort to keep her mouth closed. Even then, she couldn't tear her eyes away, which meant that when Callie's gaze landed on hers, she had no doubt she looked as gobsmacked as she felt. Recognition flashed in Callie's eyes, but not surprise. Callie smiled, one of those knowing smiles that in any other circumstance would send Hudson's libido surging. Even in this painfully awkward circumstance, her mind flashed to Callie in bed, smiling up at her in playful challenge. Was it possible to be completely aroused and utterly mortified at the same time? Apparently so. Callie licked her lips and shifted her attention to the others in the room. She introduced herself and talked about her role in the advising center she oversaw. She handed things over to Sasha, and the two of them spent the next hour in easy, informative banter. Dates and deadlines, policies and procedures, tutoring and accessibility services. Hudson would have been impressed regardless. Callie had poise, but also finesse. She came across as an expert in her field without being stuffy or pedantic. Knowing this was the same woman who teased her, flirted with her, and given her a couple of the best orgasms in recent memory, it was almost enough to make her head explode. It made paying attention more than a little difficult. Hudson did her best, though. 1, so she wouldn't embarrass herself any more than she already had. 2, because she needed to know the information being shared. She scribbled notes like her life depended on it, glad for the excuse to avoid eye contact as much as a record of what had been said. When Sasha and Callie wrapped their presentation, Hudson joined in the polite applause. The assistant from the provost's office stepped in to thank them and invite them to stay for lunch. Hudson's heart lodged in her throat, making her pulse thud in a way that surely must be visible to the naked eye. Should she acknowledge knowing Callie, or pretend they'd never met? What would Callie do? Was she half as floored as Hudson and simply better at hiding it? Before she could sort out an answer to any of those questions, Callie and Sasha politely declined. They both volunteered to help with new student move-in, it seemed, and were due at one of the residence halls shortly. Relief and disappointment zipped through her in rapid succession. Hudson settled on relief, if for no other reason than it was the sane choice. And she was nothing if not sane. Rational. Practical. She had to remind herself of that fact throughout lunch and the remainder of the afternoon. It didn't help that she found herself at a table with a mediocre deli sandwich and 4 natural scientists. Or that the afternoon presentations include the faculty ombudsman talking about the grievance process and a well-meaning librarian whose doomsday presentation about AI made her want to poke her eyes out with a fork. Not that she didn't have some valid points, but damn. Throughout it all, Callie remained front and center in her mind. Poised and professional Callie. Playful and naked Callie. Callie in that flimsy excuse for a robe, making it almost painful for Hudson to leave the next morning. Callie, who, if Hudson was being completely honest, had been front and center in her thoughts for far longer than the afternoon. Not in some creepy, obsessive way, obviously, more like she'd yet to make many friends and didn't have much else to think about when she wasn't thinking about work. Only those thoughts had been of the highly sexual and pleasantly distracting variety, which was all well and good when Callie remained squarely in the category of virtual stranger. Only Callie wasn't that now. Callie was a known quantity. Callie was a colleague. Thank you.
Oh, okay. We should be calling this the sexy attraction panel, I think. I love it. Thank you so much. That was so
Thanks, Sandy.
Next up, we have LM Rose. Hello, hello.
Hello, hello.
Please go ahead, intro yourself.
LM Rose, also known as Laura, and I'm going to be reading from my second novel today. Whoop, doing that thing. Forever Family, which is a contemporary romance. I write sapphic romance, though my first novel was actually sapphic sci-fi. So a little backstory about this before I read it. Lily and Claire, our protagonists, are housemates who share guardianship of a baby, Willow. And while Lily has realized she has feelings for Claire, she also believes them to be unrequited. So she is out on a first date with someone else. And this is triggering some realizations for Claire. Claire was pacing between the living room and the front door, clasping her upper arms tightly. She had been standoffish with Lily all the last week, and she needed to figure out why she was so agitated. The pacing didn't seem to be helping much, but it gave her something to do while she thought. Was she jealous Lily was going out and she wasn't? She thought about it for a while, but she didn't think that was the problem. She was upset that Lily was going out, but she didn't have any desire to go herself. The date with Sam had been disastrous, and she had no desire to repeat the experience. She stopped as a thought finally surfaced. Maybe she was jealous that Lily was going out without her. Was that the problem? She paced some more. After nearly an hour, she had an epiphany. She was jealous, yes, but what she was jealous of was that Lily was going out with someone else. She sat, stunned. If she had feelings for Lily, what were they? She didn't feel physically attracted to her. She chose for the moment to ignore their kissing, as well as her response to seeing Lily's dress and everything it did for her figure. But she was emotionally drawn to her. Had those feelings really evolved into something more? Had she just been in denial for weeks? She thumped her hands into her forehead. Of course those feelings had evolved. Ugh. She'd been acting like a jealous ex for days. She picked up her phone and dialed the number she'd known by heart for almost 20 years, even if all she had to do these days was tap a picture on her screen. Claire, what's up, woman? Kai's warm voice was immediately soothing to her nerves. I've been meaning to call you for a couple of weeks now. You've gone silent on me. Kai, I think I've got feelings for Lily, she practically whispered. She was so nervous just saying it. Ah, well, hun, I'm not really surprised. You're not? She was astonished. But, babe, you two have some serious chemistry. I know you've always believed you were supposed to be with a man, but Claire, how much of that is you, and how much of what is your parents and our culture have pushed onto you? Claire let that percolate in her brain, while Kai let the silence linger. She cleared her throat before saying, You really think we have chemistry? He chuckled. The air fizzes when you're together. Tina and I both thought so. Just think about it for a while. I know this is a new idea for you. I also think Lily seems like a really good person, and she'd never rush you into anything you weren't ready for. Claire bit her lip, and her voice broke as she said, She's out on a date. Ah, well, didn't you go out with some dude from your department a while back? She snorted. Point. It was a disaster, but I did go, yeah. Well then, see what Lily says when she gets home. And remember that if she's happy with someone else, it's not a reflection on you, right? Okay, right. She nodded, even though he couldn't see her. I need to think. This is a lot, I know. And if it turns out you decide you want more with Lily, then don't be afraid to tell her. She won't hurt you, Claire, not intentionally. She's not Brent. Thank all the powers that be. No, she's not. There you go, then. Think about what you want, but remember to support Lily in what she wants, even if it's someone else. You're right. When did you get to be so smart? About the time I decided you were my best friend. She laughed. Hell, where would we have been without each other, Kai? Drowned in the shark tank that was our high school, babe. Better that we swam away from that together. True, she chuckled. I have some thinking to do. Love you, babe. And Claire? Yeah? Fingers crossed Lily's date is a bust. There was a laugh in his voice. She smiled. Thanks for that, but don't curse my daughter's other mother, please. No curse meant. I just want you to see in each other what Tina and I saw between you. Thanks. Love you. Hugs and kisses to your wonderful wife on my fabulous godson. Deal. Night, babe. She hung up, thankful as always for the support, not to mention his wisdom. She was still sitting there a few minutes later when Lily walked in, surprising her. Did it not go well? Are you okay? She asked as Lily closed the door. Lily grinned. I'm great. I found my new calling as a matchmaker. What? It turns out Ashley's been crushing on a girl who works in her building, but Ashley thought she was straight. When I got there, I saw them chatting outside the club, and it was obvious that Vicky was interested. Lily hung up her coat and put her purse on the side table in the entry. I figured they were both more interested in each other than Ashley and I were, so I talked Ashley into asking her to dance and left them to it. Claire shook her head. But you were excited to go on this date. Lily grinned again, apparently in a good mood, and sat on the couch not far from her. I'll be fine. I got to dance a couple of times, and I'm good for now. Claire picked up the TV remote. Movie? She knew she was grinning, but she was so happy that it looked like they might be back to normal, she couldn't help herself. Lily kicked off her shoes and pulled her legs up under her. Bring it on. Claire chuckled and pulled up her Netflix queue. She felt so much better now that Lily was back home. She wasn't ready to analyze her earlier revelation anymore tonight, but she was ready to enjoy Lily's company again. Thank you.
Oh my gosh, we all need a friend like that. We all need,
Don't we? I know.
we need someone to talk sense to us when we're, spiraling about something we shouldn't be spiraling about. Thank you so
Exactly.
much. Nan Campbell, there she is.
Hi, everybody. I'm going to be reading from my latest, which is What Happens on Location, which is a Hollywood romance between Helen, she's a movie producer, and Nora. And Nora is the replacement director Helen had to hire last minute. They're filming at a remote location in Nevada due to a logistics error. They've been forced to share a hotel room. So, gotta get that only one bed trope in there. They used to be friends, but they're not now. Helen believes that Nora slept with Helen's wife while Nora was staying in their guest house. The scene that I'm going to read takes place after a long day of shooting, and Nora needs to know why she's getting the cold shoulder. Nora crept into the hotel room at close to midnight, fully expecting Helen to be asleep. It was dark, but Helen was wide awake, bathed in the glow of her open laptop. Helen tapped her keyboard and whatever video she was watching was silenced. You look exhausted. Since you're up, do you mind if I put on a light? Nora opened her suitcase and rummaged around. I'm going to grab a shower. As she felt the scalding water soothe her tired body, she thought about Helen, 15 feet away under the covers. What was it about this woman? Nora had been smitten in those early days. Was she still? Helen's wild swings and temperament had cooled Nora's interest, that was for sure. Right now, Helen's words seemed nice enough, but they could and probably would change on a dime. The frostiness would return, and Nora would be confused and off balance again. It was beginning to seriously bug. What had she done that was so bad? Helen and Monica had been generous in letting her stay for so long in their pool house. Nora tried to think back how long she'd actually stayed. Her lease had expired in August, but the rise in rent had made it impossible to stay. The Sawtell apartment she rented popped up the following April, and she moved in May. She counted the months in between. 9 months. She'd paid Helen and Monica a few $100 for 9 months. Looking back, that was probably way too long to trespass on their kindness. Was that why Helen was so hot and cold toward her? But why didn't she just say something at the time? Helen had never been passive-aggressive with Nora before, but now her passive aggression seemed sometimes bordering on aggressive aggression. Nora couldn't think of any other reason for Helen's behavior. Maybe it was time to clear the air and get past this. She turned off the taps. A minute or two later, Nora donned a t-shirt and a pair of boxers and exited the steamy bathroom. Helen looked up from her laptop. Are you hungry? The bar has a limited menu, but it's still open. I can run down and get you something. Helen's words were so pleasant and helpful. They contrasted with the grudging tone she expressed them with. I'm good. I ate on set. Victor is taking good care of me. Nora rubbed her towel over her head one last time and draped it around her neck. She leaned against the credenza across from the bed. I like him so much. Helen closed her laptop and gave her full attention, her voice lighter, probably because she was talking about something other than Nora. Assigning him to you is a reward for both of you. The sky's the limit with him, I think. A reward for me? I'm surprised. Helen looked guilty for a moment before making her expression opaque. Much as Nora wanted to explore the reason for her guilty look, she refrained. It looked like Helen suddenly needed to be busy as she put her laptop aside and stood. You know, I just remembered I swiped a block of cheese and some crackers from Crafty today. You can have some of that. She rummaged in her bag and withdrew a package wrapped in white paper. It's okay, Helen. I'm not hungry. Still, what's the harm in a midnight snack? Helen refused to look at her as she arranged on the bedside table a Spartan charcuterie board on wax paper. Oh, I don't have a knife to slice the cheese. Nora fished a small folding knife from the pocket of her pants that were draped over her suitcase. Here. I feel a little like Victor right now. He always has exactly what I need, exactly when I need it. Yes, Victor is good at the job. Helen's relief at a return to a neutral topic was clear. He did mention he was curious about directing. She focused on the cheese and made a precise slice with Nora's knife. If all those aspiring directors only knew how hard it really is. Not that I don't love it. She sat on the corner of the bed, leaving lots of space between them. I'm grateful for the job, Helen. And thanks for Victor. I appreciate you making my life easier. But it's not, is it? Helen waved the knife to encompass the room. You can't even relax because you have to share with me. I'm trying to make the best out of the situation, Nora said. If Helen didn't want to talk about this, why was she creating all these openings for Nora to step through? She couldn't let another one pass. You have a problem with me. I wish I knew why. Nora had sufficiently forced the issue, and they were going to have this conversation. Helen's expression didn't really change, but it was clear her hackles were all the way up. You know why. Okay, I admit, I'm an idiot, but I didn't think you'd still be mad after all this time. Helen's voice was ice cold, and the cheese was forgotten as her eyes bored into Nora's. There's not really a statute of limitations for something like what you did. I would have thought your memory of it would have faded by now. I just got lazy. I didn't think you'd mind it so much. I'm sorry. You got lazy? Helen's voice was dangerously quiet, but then words were expelled in volleys of outrage. I wouldn't mind? What does that even mean, you got lazy? You were too lazy to go to a club or use an app to find somebody to fuck? So you fucked the woman nearest to you, the one who lived 50 feet away? Nora couldn't move. What in the world was Helen talking about? The one who... What? Monica told me. Told you what? Nora was so confused right now, but her confusion seemed to only make Helen angrier. You're going to make me come out and say it. You're cruel, Nora. Helen slapped the knife onto the table. Her eyes were glassy and her breath was coming in furious spurts. Nora focused on Helen. There was no way Helen's extreme emotions were produced by an obviously incorrect assumption that Nora had overstayed her welcome in Helen's guest house. And what was all that about going to a club and fucking someone and being cruel? Nora and Helen seemed to be having two completely different conversations. I'm sorry, Helen. I have no idea what you're talking about. You two were fucking. The words hit Nora like the fallout of an explosion. She tried to make sense of what Nora had said. It honestly didn't compute. Who was fucking? Me and Monica? The absurdity of the idea made Nora bark out a laugh. And then she couldn't stop. Nora quickly covered her mouth, but it didn't do much to stifle the guffaws that kept coming as if she had no will to stop them. Helen sat stone-faced, while Nora absolutely lost it to the idea that she could ever want to be with Monica when Helen was the only one who would ever... Even now, she couldn't quite allow that thought to coalesce in her head. It was so ludicrous it had gone from funny to sad and back to funny again. You're laughing at destroying my marriage. I wouldn't have believed you could be that heartless. Helen turned her back to Nora and began sawing at the log of cheese. Helen, no! She wanted to touch Helen, but held herself back. I would never do that to you. Ow, fuck! Helen dropped the knife and held her index finger, where a slash of blood appeared between the first and second knuckle. Nora moved closer. Let me see. Helen's face was tight with tension. God damn it. Nora fetched a cold, damp washcloth and gave it to Helen, who pressed it to her finger for long seconds. Are you okay? It's fine. I'm stupid. I shouldn't have been wielding a knife when I was super pissed off. Nora needed to explain. I have never slept with Monica. Getting involved with someone who is taken is not something I would ever do, and I would never, never do that to you. I'm sorry I laughed. It was just so incredibly wrong, it became funny. I thought you were mad because I stayed too long in your pool house. It appeared to take a moment for Nora's words to penetrate, but then Helen's bewilderment lifted. That never bothered me. Why would it? She peeked under the cloth and rewrapped it, her gaze pointed at the abandoned snack. You didn't even want this cheese. No, but you were thinking of my comfort, and I appreciate that. Even if Helen didn't want to hear it, Nora still had things she needed to say. Look, Helen, I don't have the slightest interest in Monica that way. I never have. She was a friend. So were you. Friends who were incredibly kind to me. How could I do that to a friend? Helen swayed a little toward Nora. Nora put a tentative arm around her and felt relief when Helen sagged against her. Nora would have been content to sit there for hours, comforting Helen. But 5 seconds later, Helen pulled away and shut herself into the bathroom.
Oh my gosh, those two have a lot to sort out.
They really do.
There's a lot of subtext going on there. That was awesome. Thank you, Nan. We do have a bunch of time left, so if everyone wants to jump back on, do your characters cross the line at the same time, or is there like one-sided pining going on for a little while? How do you usually write it? Do they realize together, or is it one and then the other? Laura, let's start with you.
Okay. One-sided pining. I think in both my novels, actually. Yeah. In Tribute, Fiona definitely was pining for Samala before vice versa. And with Forever Family, Lily definitely realizes and is attracted to Claire much sooner than Claire gets her act together.
Okay. Is that a specific choice or just the way that you write?
I think it's just the way that I write, at least for these characters.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Aurora, how about you?
Yeah, I think my default is probably like mutual but unspoken pining. Like that's where it's fun, where they're sort of being cool around each other, but both either having the feelings or the attraction. In this book, I think it's mutual, but their hangups are different, and I think that's where things can get fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And Nan?
I think it really varies in my books, but for this one, it's one-sided pining for a long time. If you couldn't pick up on it, Nora has liked Helen for quite a while and knew that she was off limits because she was married. And she never let on. And that's why it's surprising to Helen when it finally comes out that Nora has had feelings for her for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah. The one-sided does give you like a lot of angst to work with. How about you, Anna?
I'm kind of on board. For the record, my PBR list is definitely going to increase after this one. Just because I loved all those readings. So it's like add to list. I'm kind of with everybody, and like it varies based on what my characters need. I know in Coming Up Clutch, I had Razor and Ashton. They kind of addressed that they had mutual crushes on each other, but they didn't really act on it because they didn't think the other one felt the same until much later in life. With Coda, Parker has had previous pining for Hannah, but because it just really like I don't want to say destroyed, but it definitely had a big impact on her life emotionally and how she reviewed relationships going forward. That when Hannah comes and says, "Yeah, I like you that way," it's very off-putting for her, and it takes her a moment to get back to that point to trust it
Mm,
more than anything else.
yeah. Okay. That's very layered. So what's a sign that a character has crossed that line, even if they don't admit it on the page? And we'll start with Anna.
Oh boy. Um, a good sign to me, especially in Hannah's case, is just how she is very aware of who she is now after her divorce, but she's still not certain that it's the right move for her. So, but once she sees Parker, it starts solidifying that, yes, this is who she is. She is very much attracted to women. This is not just a late in life, ta-da, or anything like that, or anything. So, to be able to, it was fun exploring that on her behalf and everything. So I found that very intriguing to just show that even when she wasn't sure, the way that Parker made her feel made her become more certain of who she was at this point in her life and what she really was attracted to. So
I like that. I think love
yeah.
should make you more sure of yourself.
Yeah.
What about you, Nan?
I think for the crossing the line part, a scene like the one that I just read had to happen between these two characters so that there could be like a little bit of clearing of the air. And they are not going to be able to move forward until that obstacle was kind of removed from their path. Um, so, yeah, I think that answers the question.
Yeah. Laura, how about you? A sign a character has crossed the line, even if they won't admit it.
It's actually a really good question. I think generally you're seeing their feelings evolve somehow, that they're either paying more attention to the other person or their feelings are more affectionate, even when they haven't admitted it. I'm not sure I can be more precise than that.
Yeah, I think like maybe part of what you're getting at is that like slight obsessiveness that you get, when you start to like somebody and you're constantly thinking about them, and maybe you haven't like admitted that to yourself, but your brain just, spins it around and around.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Aurora, how about you? A sign that you've crossed the line.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's when a character, it's the beauty of interiority, right? When they're noticing things that they have no business noticing, or they're imagining things. They shouldn't have to watch myself to not use the phrase "she had no business" too frequently. But I think that's what's so fun is that like when that shift is happening, it is rarely a conscious choice, right? Like it's happening. And to have a character's own awakening of it, usually long before they're sort of saying it out loud, is one of the funnest things one of the most fun things of writing romance.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I think it takes a while to admit it to yourself. You're, kind of in denial land, even when you're can't stop noticing and thinking and spiraling.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a question from Anne Hart. Crossing the line is naughty and intriguing. How did you choose the setting for your story? Nan, we'll start with you.
Well, I really enjoy Hollywood romances, and this is my second one. And the first one was set in Los Angeles, and I figured that, another one set in Los Angeles would be fine, but let's open it up to something, which is where the whole idea of having it be on location came in. And I wanted it to be somewhere in the United States because I know a lot of filmmaking is happening outside the United States, and I wanted to keep it in our country. Um, and I wanted it to be remote, and I thought, but also close to something very urban. And Nevada and Las Vegas, there's some scenes that take place in Las Vegas in the latter half of the book. So Hollywood, filmmaking, Nevada, Las Vegas, it just kind of made sense to me.
Yeah, love it. Aurora.
Yeah, I've wanted to write a campus novel for a long time. I've worked at colleges for 25 plus years at this point, which is a little horrifying. But picking a small liberal arts college kind of is a certain niche, and there's a certain vibe that's what I was going for with these characters. And I picked the Hudson Valley because it's beautiful and it's familiar and it's just far enough away from the college where I work to be mistaken as a.
It's a very tactical choice. I like it. Oh, Anna, how about you? How did you choose the setting?
With Coda, it was pretty easy because I needed a small town. I wanted a small town because it makes it easier for them, for two people who knew each other a while back. They run into each other again. And the college I went to, I mean, the college I mentioned that they go to is the college I went to, in Conway, Arkansas, and everything. So that was the easy part. But it was just like, okay, how do I transfer them to? Because like the first half of the book, we're more on Hannah's, turf, and in the second half of the book, we go to Parker's turf, and she lives out in Hollywood, and she doesn't have a big like Hollywood glamorous life because she does post production, but still, it's like, how do I still keep this small and intimate? And that's when I kind of came up with, she works outside of her house, or out of her house. She has a small studio in the back, and I just needed to keep those. It's like with a city as big as Los Angeles is, it's like trying to find those moments to keep it small and intimate, so that way she and Hannah can have those moments that not only start building the friendship, but also start building the romance and the trust in each other. So that was fun. I searched on Zillow and everything for like cool houses in like certain areas and everything. So like that's perfect. Let's do that one.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. Small towns are good for that kind of intimacy for sure.
Mhm.
And Laura, how about you? Setting.
Portland, Oregon, and a little smattering of San Francisco, both cities with that I'm familiar with. And in fact, I live in Portland, so that was a big part of choosing very specific locations for certain aspects of the story, certain scenes. Trying not to make them too obvious, but if you are a Portlander, you might recognize some places. But just for me, this was my first contemporary, and that just made it a little easier to kind of piece it all together, was using places I was familiar with.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Write what you know.
Mhm.
Okay, so which do you prefer to write when it comes to crossing the line? A stolen moment or an honest confession? Or both, I
¿Por
guess.
qué no los dos?
You can have one. We'll start with Laura.
Oh, that's a really good question. I'm not sure I have a good answer. I think probably the sort of stolen moment, because I think by the time, at the point that they're crossing the line, they're not quite ready for confession with my characters. They're just sort of having epiphanies.
Okay. All right. One vote for stolen moment. What about Nan?
I think that a stolen moment, I agree with Laura. I think a stolen moment in the early parts of the book is almost necessary before you get to the honest revelation. In this particular book, because they have the privacy of their hotel room where they're forced to coexist together and kind of let that kind of melting of their relationship happening. There are a lot of stolen moments before they can even kind of confront anything honest.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's a good point. Aurora?
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense. I think stolen moments are fun and align really well with kind of attraction and deciding to act on that attraction. And the honest confessions come down the road when it's more feelings than chemistry.
I like that. I like that differentiation between the physical attraction and the emotional vulnerability. Anna, anything to add?
I'm going to go totally the opposite and say honest confession myself. Because in Coda, I had a lot of those for my characters, but they also led to some really amazing stolen moments that they had.
Mm.
Um, just because these two women in this story, they've just been hurt so much in so many different ways that the last thing they want to do is hurt each other, and the last thing they want to do is rush into something when they're both still reeling from emotional baggage of their past. So
Mm.
they have these moments where they actually have, like, I think I have one where it's like they're just sitting out by a fire pit, and Parker reveals like she hasn't really had a lot of relationships because she's just very intense with her emotions, and she's just, some women are just turned off by that.
Mm.
And, you know, Hannah goes to comfort her, and it just leads to them finally realizing you're the person I'm supposed to be with. And that's when they move forward from there.
I like that. Honest confessions leading to stolen moments.
Mhm.
Okay, we have a couple of minutes left, so why don't you all plug your books? Tell us about your book and why our readers today should buy it. Who has not gone first yet? No one's going to volunteer. Aurora.
So this is a little bit of a departure for me. It's definitely kind of I don't want to call it a love letter, but it's definitely a tribute and poking fun at life in academia. So if you've had any experiences on a college campus, I think there's a lot of humor and banter in it. And I think it is really a playful story, which in this very angsty world in which we live sometimes is a little bit of fun. Although I've had a reader who's like a former professor say that it was experiencing PTSD of like having to go back and deal with faculty drama. I don't know if that was the best pitch, but that is my sort of fluffy Sunday morning vibe.
All right, I like it. I like it. Anna, how about you?
So this is basically my therapy book, is what I call it. This is as close as I'm going to get to writing an autobiography, because a lot of the moments I took from my own life. This is the first book, or I know it's only my second book that I've written, but it's actually the first story I've written where I asked my mom how it was, and it made her angry because she actually recognized some of the moments in here that I was talking about. But I feel anyone who's of a certain age, I'm 47 now, so it's like it really was therapeutic for me to go back, growing up as a kid in the 90s in a place where coming out was almost detrimental, and to have, like, you know, people kind of see me as something, as like, you know, not popular, but not really, you know, someone they wanted to hang out with either, and everything. So it was just anyone who's ever had that emotional strain as a kid, and then they finally get to adulthood and they're finally realizing how confident they are, and that they would, it's like if they could go back and say something to their younger self, what would they say?
Mm.
Stuff like that. So
Yeah, that's great. I think a lot of readers can relate.
mhm.
Laura, tell us about your book.
Okay. This is Forever Family. I just can't seem to get it in that sweet spot there, right? Which is it's a story with that sort of doesn't necessarily start with a tragedy, but a tragedy happens pretty early on, and that leads to these two women sharing custody of a baby that is not theirs biologically, either of them. And it's a story about finding family, essentially. One of our lovely characters has very poor family connections to some extent. She has parents who are not supportive. She has a parent who's rather typical homophobic bigot, and the other character has a fabulous family and is willing to share that. And is willing to invite her new friend essentially into her friend group and into her family. And that's pretty much what it's about. It's a strong story about family, really.
Yeah, I love that. I think a lot of us, could use an Insta family every now and then. So that's awesome. And
Absolutely.
Nan, tell us about what happens on location.
So this, I like to call it a one-sided enemies to lovers novel because one of the characters doesn't know that she's enemies of the other one. And I think that's a little interesting, a little twist on the usual. And of course, it is a Hollywood romance, even though it's not set in Hollywood. And I wanted to do something that didn't focus on an actor. I love the whole acting part of it. I wrote another book that's about an actor. Um, but I wanted to get to the people who you may not see so often behind the scenes, their stories being told. And there are a lot of people who do a lot of jobs on movie sets, so I could be writing these books for a long time, highlighting a lot of different behind the scenes people. And I really enjoy the research that comes with writing these books. And if you like Hollywood, but maybe a little bit not the typical Hollywood, this might be for you.
Awesome. Love it. And you can find the links to all those books in the chat. We do have a sale running all weekend through early next week if you want to grab them. Thank you to our amazing readers, and we hope to see you on some of the other panels we have running today. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Andy.
you.
Thank you.